Why did Israel complain in the wilderness of Paran? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Numbers on Walking Through the Bible.
His word, the glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, turn to Numbers chapter 11. We're going to be reading from verses 1 to 9. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Numbers chapter 11, beginning at verse 1. Now when the people complained, it displeased the Lord, for the Lord heard it, and his anger was aroused. So the fire of the Lord burned among them, and consumed some in the outskirts of the camp. Then the people cried out to Moses, and when Moses prayed to the Lord, the fire was quenched. So he called the name of the place Taberah, because the fire of the Lord had burned among them. Now the mixed multitude who were among them yielded to intense craving. So the children of Israel also wept again and said, "Who will give us meat to eat? We remember the fish which we ate freely in Egypt, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. But now our whole being is dried up. There is nothing at all except this manna before our eyes." Now the manna was like coriander seed, and its color like the color of bdellium. The people went about and gathered it, ground it on millstones, or beat it in the mortar, cooked it in pans, and made cakes of it. And its taste was like the taste of pastry prepared with oil. And when the dew fell on the camp in the night, the manna fell on it. The children of Israel have left Sinai. They have gone into the wilderness of Paran, which according to our map is what we would call today northern Saudi Arabia. And what do we find along this journey? The same thing we saw after the children of Israel left Egypt and were on the way to Mount Sinai, complaining. Israel, we're going to find here in Numbers, will make a habit of complaining against God for whatever they find difficult. There's not enough food. There's not enough water. The journey is too long. How quick Israel was to forget all the things that God had already done for them in the year or so since leaving Egypt. And how quick Israel was to forget all of the joys that lay ahead of them in Canaan. Sometimes in this life, we have to do hard things, even painful things that we don't want to do in order to reach a goal. But we do them because we really want the prize that is at the end. God had promised them a land flowing with milk and honey, but he wasn't going to magically transport them there. No, they had to travel by foot. It would be hot and it would be long. But God would provide for them because that was necessary. It's no wonder then why the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel when they complained, for Israel was acting like a spoiled child. In the case of Numbers 11, the fire of the Lord is said to have burned among them and consumed the outskirts of the camp. The last time we saw something similar was in Leviticus 10 when Nadab and Abihu were killed by God for offering strange fire before him. This fire was meant as a warning to Israel that they weren't to complain against the Lord. The people at the outskirts of the camp paid the price for the people's complaining in that they likely died. The people cried out to Moses, and when Moses prayed to the Lord on the people's behalf, the fire was quenched. Moses called the place Taberah, because the fire of the Lord burned among them. So for the time being, the people calmed down. However, this wouldn't last long, for verse 4 identifies another complaint that Israel had. The food that was being provided for them was not what they wanted. Recall from Exodus 16 when Israel complained for bread that God sent them manna from heaven in order to feed them. He did this miraculously until Israel settled in Canaan. This manna was like coriander seed and its color was like bdellium, meaning that it was most likely a whitey pale red color. It tasted like pastry prepared with oil, meaning that it should have been satisfying. However, Israel remembered what they had in Egypt and longed for that. What did they remember? The fish, cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic, which would have made their food taste great. What had they forgotten? The brutal slavery they were under while in Egypt. While in Egypt, they had complained about this and were happy to leave under the direction of Moses. But alas, when things don't go as we expect, we sometimes yearn for the good things of the past while forgetting all of the bad things. Now, whether or not Israel was exaggerating what they received in Egypt is really not important. What is important is how unappreciative they were to God for their provisions. He had given them good, food to eat. No, it was not filet mignon or the best cut of fish, but it was substance that was able to provide them everything they needed in their diet. They should have been thankful. Today, God has promised to provide for our needs. That doesn't mean that He provides for all of our wants, but sometimes He does provide some of our wants. As Christians, we need to learn to be content with what we have and not be envious of others, for in the end, our goal is not to live it up here on this earth, but to be in heaven for all of eternity. We'll continue with this story, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Numbers chapter 11, verses 10 to 15, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.